Now, living chronically with PTSD is literally like living in chronic pain. Anguish and grief and emotional pain is often treated with the same drugs like opioids, morphine, codeine, alcohol, so the same addictive tendencies as people use to treat pain. So when we treat pain with drugs and then anguish goes away, that's a kind of sad incentive for people to develop addictions after trauma, because these are really painful pathways that are treated with drugs. So now what can we do to help Oscar? Because if Oscar continues to live with this and to live with the anguish and the grief and the bodily sensations that keep coming up and completely overwhelming and overtaking his body, that's going to send him into even more anxiety and depression. And oftentimes there is a link between PTSD and addiction because people feel the need to self-medicate through drugs and alcohol these sensations, right? So living with chronic grief or chronic fear, chronic anxiety, depression, pain, and PTSD is literally like living with chronic pain. And actually, it's the same pain pathways that you have in chronic pain is also with chronic grief and emotional pain. And we don't want Oscar to get to that point. So in order to help Oscar, one of the first things we want to do is to help shut off the smoke detector. We want to decrease the function of the amygdala. And the question is, can we use the brain for this? So we know that when somebody is feeling triggered, a big part of the cortex, especially the left part of the brain, is offline. So then can we use the brain to bring the body back to presence, back to grounding, and move it away from fear if the brain is actually not functioning as well as it should? And the answer to that is we can tap into the prefrontal cortex with interoception. And so that means that if we want to reduce the activity of the amygdala by using a part of the brain while the brain is affected by trauma, we can use one technique, and that would be to ask ourselves, what can I feel within my body? And with interoception, we would identify, well, I cannot feel my fingers, they feel numb, but I can feel my chest. It feels painful, it feels a lot of pressure, and it feels like there's an elephant sitting on my chest. And then we can describe the sensations that we feel within our body and allow our body to feel those sensations. And a part of that exercise, not only feeling what's happening within our body, even though it might be painful, but also what's happening on our skin, what's happening around our body. So what can we see, hear, feel, smell in order to help us orient to our body and to where we are. And that in itself will help pull the body and the mind and that trigger response out of the past, so out of reliving the event, and back into the body. Even though the body might feel overwhelmed, at least it's a step in saying, you are not there, it is not still happening to you, you are here. And right here, right now, your body feels this. And so it's reconnecting slowly with the body sensations. The other way that we can help Oscar is actually kind of bypassing the brain, because the brain is overwhelmed right now. So how can we send signals, not directly to the brain, but indirectly, to say, it's okay, we're safe, amygdala, you can turn off now. We're feeling safety, we're feeling pleasure, You can now reduce the vital signs. You can now close the HPA axis. You don't need the adrenaline or adrenaline cortisol. You don't need any of that. And so the way that we can tap into the body to send safety signals to the brain to shut off that amygdala and that fear response is through the vagus nerve. So 80% of the vagus nerve's job is actually sending information from the body back up to the brain. The vagus nerve actually runs along and innervates the throat, so our voice, the heart, the chest, the lungs, the kidneys, liver, genitals. It plays a role in orgasm, the pelvis. There's a lot of endings around our ears and in our face as well. So the vagus nerve is called the wandering nerve, and it is a huge nerve. And what's cool about the vagus nerve is that when it sends signals from the body that are pleasurable or that are safety signals, then that's one way that we can bypass the chaos that's going on in the mind. And so the idea is, how can we create sensations or techniques that will allow the vagus nerve to send those safety signals that will calm the brain and the body? And so one safety signal that can help to calm the body through the vagus nerve is actually attunement. And so when we have eye contact, when we feel safe with eye contact, when we have eye contact, when we have safe or healthy touch, when we have someone talking to us and we're talking to them, when we are singing, all of these slight motions and all of these gestures actually touch upon the vagus nerve and help to convey symbols and signals of safety to the body. And you can even see this with children. So children who are trying to self-soothe will actually hug themselves, they'll rock, they'll hum, they'll cry, and they want someone to hold them, to rock them, to sing to them, to hug them. And when they cry, they release cortisol, and adults are not always open to touch right away, but we are very similar and we do regress very much, and we need very similar things. And so what children are essentially doing intuitively when they're rocking and humming is trying to reestablish rhythm. So we have a heart that has a rhythm, we have a breath that has a rhythm, right? We need to have a regular breath rate, it has to be steady, it has to be consistent. We have the rhythm of sleep, the rhythms of eating and digestion and going to the bathroom. And trauma interrupts self-agency, it interrupts our rhythm, it interrupts our sleep. And even that rocking sensation is a way to re-establish rhythm, which is why dancing, which is why drumming, playing an instrument, re-establishing rhythm is really healing to our system as well. And related to that is even getting out and being exposed to the sun in order to reestablish sunlight as a rhythm, moonlight as a rhythm. And so reestablishing rhythm when rhythm has been broken. Related to rhythm is actually heart rate variability. So heart rate variability goes down often when there's PTSD. And so in order to reestablish rhythm, we can even work with the breath. And the quickest way to reduce a triggered nervous system's response is actually through breath. So working directly with our vital signs. And what we can do is actually not even take a deep breath in, because taking a sharp deep breath in symbolizes and signals to the body, oh, I need breath, I need air, I'm in danger, this is going to be something I need air for. So actually not taking a big deep breath in, but if anything, prolonging the exhales is one way to work with the breath. So counting about 6 seconds as we exhale, waiting 2 or 3 seconds with the empty lungs, And then taking a breath in is a way to convey to the nervous system as quickly as possible that, hey, you don't have to have a high heart rate right now. We can slow things down. And as we slow things down and as we work with the vagus nerve and we send signals of safety through the vagus nerve, we actually tone the vagus nerve and heart rate variability improves. A big part of healing from trauma as well is actually having the ability to be creative, to make loose associations in order to see things differently, in order to feel about our experiences and ourselves differently than before. And so where that comes in is actually REM sleep. So we know that sleeping is really healing for us. And people who have a good deep REM sleep are more creative after. And very similarly with drama therapy, this is something that helps to train us to be more creative, to see things differently, to have things mirrored back to us differently, whether they were events that we went through or events that other people went through, whether it's role playing and taking on different roles. And very similarly, EMDR is also something that encourages looser associations, a wider range of possibilities, more creative thinking related to unpleasant images and sensations that come up. And this can be a really important route and way to have repair and resolution. And the other things that come up when it comes to trauma healing involve movement. So now that Oscar has gone through many different experiences that felt powerless, that felt a lack of choice and self-agency, a big part of his healing process would be to restore power and self-agency. And so using self-defense techniques is one way to use mindfulness and to restore power and self-agency. I can protect myself, I can kick and punch, I can be powerful, I can be more powerful than others. And that's one way to work with restoring power and self-agency. And when it comes to yoga, there's also mindfulness. And it's another way to work with the body where we're able to create sensations and movements that have a beginning, middle, and end, training the body to be in the present. So we're saying, I can now go into this posture. When I move into this posture, I'm doing it because I'm choosing to do it. And when I'm done this posture is over. I finished that experience, that sensation within my body. It's over. And going in and out of postures and in and out of experiences where you've had control over is a way to retrain the body to be okay with creating experiences and with being able to say, all right, it's over. I'm not stuck in the past. Another type of therapy that works is neurofeedback, which is essentially also training the brain to work in a calmer manner, to work less chaotically. And that's the repetitive way of saying, hey, listen, you can focus calmly on this. No need to overreact, no need to stress. This is a way to train our system not to overreact and not to be rewarded with a fear response, but rather to be rewarded with a calm, cool, composed method of responding and of reacting. And another way that we can work with the body, especially when it comes to triggers, that also has been used for children, is heart medications that slow down the heart rate so that when a trigger does arise, the heart rate does not shoot up and cause this cascade of high heart rate, hyper responsiveness, hyper arousal. So that would be propranolol and clonidine, and these also have been used. But again, these things need to be done in tandem with other therapies, because taking a pill will never be enough to train our body to respond differently and to remap our neural networks. And luckily, Julia went over to Oscar's place and she invited him over to spend some time with his family. And he was able to have some support. He was able to dabble in some yoga, some self-defense. He was able to do EMDR. He was able to do some trauma therapy. He was able to get some nature therapy, get some sunlight, and to work with his breath to calm down, to retrain his nervous system. And they were able to get through things together in the end. And so thankfully, Julia and Oscar have a very loving and happy ending. I hope that this information has been helpful and insightful for you. And I know this is a lot of information, and essentially what I spend my days doing is putting together different somatic and movement-based therapies into 10 to 15 minute a day exercises to help people who suffer from trauma to bring the nervous system back to calm, to help remap and rewire the nervous and the limbic system, and to foster resilience as well. And this is meant either for therapists to gain inspiration from, and especially for survivors to follow along and to use. And if you would like, we also have the opportunity for you to fill out a nervous system assessment to see where you are in your healing journey, if you are a survivor. And at the same time, when you fill out this nervous system assessment, you will also be given the opportunity to speak with a member of our team to see if this is something you want to work with more as a survivor or you want to learn more about as either a therapist or a coach. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you found this helpful. Wishing you a beautiful day.